I find it hard to describe this experience to family and friends back home. I think it's because there will only be 20 some people that can truly understand what I went through and what I saw. Pictures can try to explain, I can attempt to use words to describe it, but it all seems to fall short. It all doesn't capture the depth of my experience. When I told people I was going to Africa for 2 weeks, I got a lot of varied responses. I even thought I was a little bit crazy. I'd never imagined that I would be doing anything this adventurous. I only had two friends who had ever been, and one had told me about a girl on our trip who was sent home because of a worm in her eye. Both had talked about the heat and the mosquitoes. Needless to say, I took a leap of faith. I rationalized it. When would I ever get this chance again? I made the same argument to my parents. It'll be good for me, I said. I'll learn a lot. I'll admit I had a lame rebuttal for the worst possible scenario they could think of. The best that I could come up with was that it'd make for a great story. My expectations were that I'd see a lot of poverty, a lot of violence, a lot of disease, and a lot of people who were really sad. I think that this is generally the stereotype Americans have for Africa, but I think we ended up seeing a lot of people who were poor, but who were, to our surprise, peaceful, healthy, and happy. I think that just as we stereotype Africa, Ghanaians stereotyped us, something that I wasn't prepared for. We entered doe-eyed into this place, making eye contact with every hawker that crossed our path and feeling flattered when someone asked us our names. By the end, we had closed the lines on the bus when we went to the market and eliminated all small talk with vendors. We were a walking billboard for affluence and privilege. It was the first time in my life I've been aware of the color of my skin and what it means. I'd like to think I'm someone who's aware of social justice issues, but this trip allowed me to really see the world through a new lens, to constantly evaluate my social interactions and be thinking of how my actions might affect someone else's perception of me. I remember someone talking towards the end of the trip about how tiring it was to constantly be a spectacle as we walked down the street. I think about that feeling every day and how, as much as I might feel like a minority in Ghana, some of my friends might in the U.S. feel worse, being constantly marginalized through overt discrimination or microaggressions. The juxtaposition of wealth and poverty became interesting to me as the weeks went by. I found it fascinating and unsettling driving through the city. You could see a hawker selling some water to a guy in a nicer looking car. Even near the larger government buildings, we saw people who had little huts and were selling things out of them. It wasn't just in the material sense, it was also in the people and us. We walked around with clothes on our backs that were probably worth more than one of the hawkers would make in a day. Our group was offered a boat ride in an impoverished community that we happened upon if we paid. We would go meet affluent bankers and then talk to people who slept 15 to a room. I also saw it in our site visits. We talked with many people who were very wealthy in openness, like the real estate businessman who talked with us for hours, even on a bus, about the biggest issues he faces. We talked with people at Mest who wanted to learn and grow their businesses to fix the issues they see in the world around them. We also met people who, in my opinion, were poor in openness too. Ones who carried the same stereotypes against Islam that we see in the U.S., unafraid to say biased statements. One who put on presentations at the government but talked in circles about how they were trying to fix the big issues. People who failed to see the big picture. However, despite any hardship they may face, the Ghanaians astounded me with their optimism, their hope for a better country that is a major player in the world market, their hope for better schools or lower unemployment rate, their hope for affordable housing, for transparency in the oil industry. I've never seen so many people passionate about what they're doing, even with limited resources. Another thing I will never forget is how comfortable I felt in Ghana. Despite the lack of comforts from home, I rarely felt like I wasn't welcomed or respected or liked. I remember the man who took our breakfast tickets memorized our names so he could greet Erica and I when we handed the tickets in. Senna will always stick with me too. He had such a love for his country, a passion for teaching us about it, and a passion for understanding who we are. I remember sitting in that hot seat next to the door and having him ask me about my life, my aspirations. He shared his knowledge so that we might share it with those we know and bring it into our own lives. The people who inspired me at least most often were the people who were on the trip. I only knew Erica when I came in, but I ended up at least knowing where everyone is headed post-graduation. I've never felt privileged to get to know such optimistic, intelligent, and all-around beautiful people. I talked with Heba about her opinion on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Yash about the messiness of life and relationships, Lindsay on my views on religion, Saran about issues within Greek life at the university. I danced like a fool with Harsha and Nick. I've debated the merits of various frozen yogurt stands with John. The experiences I have will be nothing without the people that I shared them with. I went to Ghana with an open mind, but I came expecting my life to change, and I believe it did. Pretty impressive for 2 weeks. I think the one thing I'm still struggling with is what can I do? On the one hand, seeing all this gave me hope that good things are happening in Ghana and people are creating change. On the other hand, there's so much to be done. Most places we went to spoke of the help they need or the issues they face just on a daily basis. I try and fail to envision myself interning in a rural village or starting a social enterprise in rice farming. I hope instead that I will find some way to call attention in the private sphere to these issues and questions. Every conversation, every experience has taught me something, whether it was to appreciate the life I have, appreciate the people I'm with, or just to appreciate the beauty of things in life. My mentor always talks about how if it's uncomfortable, you're growing. I think that it's very relevant to my experience in Ghana. It wasn't always comfortable, but it was an experience that fundamentally changed my perception of the world, of my country, of my identity, and of myself. Thank you for making it possible and for allowing us to try to navigate and understand our place in this world.